knows there's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. And today we're going to start the stream not with my overhead room camera, but with my my print in progress. Oh, this printer! I'm gonna be the last person on the internet to be saying good things about the Bambu Labs X1 Carbon, but dang, it's a good printer. I am printing. I normally feel a little bit self-conscious about spending filament printing what are basically just throwaway plastic toys, right? Just it feels kind of wasteful. I guess I think it's kind of silly if I really reflect on it to have a 3D printer at all and then be like, oh, how much plastic is the world using? Like, you're part of the problem, Bardwell. But I thought this is a print in place. Let's see if I can show you guys this print. Hang on. This is a print in place dragon. It's articulated. So when it finishes printing, it'll be fully articulated and like wiggle. It's got joints built into it. And it's going to print exactly like that on the bed. And then like be able to, anyway, that's the promise. And so far so good. We haven't got to the hard parts yet, but so far so good. This printer is insane. Like, literally, so far, every single print I've done, as long as I use the bamboo filament, it's literally just set the profile, click print, and then it comes out and it's perfect. So far, so good. I got a little bit of trouble when I tried to use a spool of filament that wasn't bamboo. I had to tweak some of the profile settings. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's not made for it. But so far, bamboo filament and bamboo printer, it's just... I said earlier, eventually something about this machine will F up and break. And because it's a 3D printer, eventually it will. But I'm so impressed with this stupid machine. It literally, look at this, look at this. It literally knows what color and type of filament is loaded into the AMS because the filament has RFID tags in it. So all you have to do is set the filament into the AMS and it immediately, the slicer just reads. You can set it manually too, but I took this same print hang on, I'm going to find this. I took the same print and I sliced it on Prusa Slicer. Okay, here's Bamboo Slicer. Total print time, you may have a little trouble reading this on the stream. 12 hours, 37 minutes total time. Okay. Prusa Slicer. 24 hours, 20 minutes. About twice the frickin' time. So, just stock settings, the Bamboo is twice as fast as the Prusa. Now, the Prusa Mini is not a speed demon, obviously, so that's a little bit of an unfair fight. And the Prusa, the Bamboo is twice the price. Hey, twice the price, twice as fast. Makes sense to me. Anyway, this is the most, like, how to put this? I like 3D printing. I like effing around with 3D printers, right? But a lot of times I just want a part. I need to go fly and I need a GoPro mount. And I don't like that whether I can go make a video today hinges on whether my 3D printer is feeling okay today, right? When instead of worrying about, like, going to fly, I'm worrying about, damn it, is my filament dry? Damn it, is my bed level? Damn it, I just... Like, there's times when you want to just get deep in the muck and play with your 3D printer, and when you're trying to get shit done is not that time. And so there's always this sort of background anxiety with a 3D printer, at least so far in my experience. The Prusa Mini... the Prusa printers do a great job, but they're not particularly fast. Not yet. There's a new one coming. Everybody's making fast printers now. Bamboo was just the... But this Bamboo printer is the closest to... I just have something that spits out parts for me, and I don't have to, like, bite my nails every time I click print and wonder if I'm going to have to go have a failed print. It's brilliant. It's freaking brilliant. So far. I guess I should tell you that Bamboo sent me this printer. I guess I just said a lot of... This is not like a review, but Bamboo did send me this printer. It's a $1,500 printer, and they were just like, hey, we like your content. Use our printer. They didn't even require me to do a review. They were like, yeah, do a review if you want to do a review. I mean, it's because they know their machine is freaking awesome, and they know I'm going to be happy with it, I'm guessing. So, in the interest of disclosure, they did send me this printer, if you feel, but, Jesus, it's crazy. It's crazy good. It's crazy good. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about FPV with you. 3D printing's part of FPV, isn't it? Yeah, sure it is. We're here to talk about FPV with you. I'm going to be answering your questions. In fact, Blunty is going to be... Blunty's here as he has been for the past few weeks. How you doing, Blunty? Say hi to the people.
Good, JB. How's it going?
Good. Very good to be back with you after taking the day off Sunday. I was in Atlanta for the Shaky Knees Music Festival. I had never been to a music festival before. I don't know. I know it's weird. It was kind of cool. What'd you do with your day off?
I played a game that I'm not really supposed to say that I played.
A game that is coming out soon, but might have been leaked and able to be played if you know how to hack.
If we say the name, I think we'd have. Yeah.
You think that someone would be mad at this stream if we said the name.
The streams have been getting taken down in 90 minutes or less on Twitch when people are trying to.
Oh well, I am like to play the game or just say the name of the game.
To play it, but I mean they've been pretty touchy with stuff. So,
okay, I won't say. I think everybody in the audience could guess, but I won't say it. Cool. You have any comment about this, whatever game this might be, or you want to keep it to yourself?
Yeah, I would imagine it's going to review as well as people think it's going to review.
Ooh.
Or better.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I have a friend who is very looking forward to this game coming out, and I told her, hey, I heard that you could get this game early. And she was like, you can? I was like, yeah, but you have to, like, root your... She was like, but I already bought it. She was thinking that you could get it, like, from a different store. She was like, I don't want to buy it twice. And I was like, no, you don't understand. If you do it this way, you don't have to pay for it at all. Now, you decide how you feel about that, but...
Yeah, the relevant console that we're talking about is hacked so easily it's not even funny. And you're not actually rooting, so you're not messing with your NAND, so you're not actually messing with anything. It's all emulated. It's all, like, floating above the stuff, so...
Nice.
All right.
Well, I'm glad to be back. We're going to be taking your questions. Blunty is going to be queuing up your questions. Here's my board, if you will, with questions that he's tagged for me to pay attention to. So he's going to be queuing up those questions. I'm going to be knocking them down, setting them up, knocking them down. That's how we do it. If you guys want to leave questions here in the YouTube chat, by all means. We're not one of those streams that only takes questions from the super chats. We take questions from the regular chat. We also take questions from the Discord server. Damn right we do. These are my patrons. They are on my Discord server. And we actually have a question here. Do you have a Discord server? I do have a Discord server. The way to get to be on the Discord server is to join my Patreon. Patreon, $2 a month is the requirement to be a patron. Sign up. You get access to the Discord server. There's a link down below if you want to join my Patreon. But it's too early for a plug on my Patreon, so we won't talk about that. But we will be taking questions from the patrons, of course. And if you want to ensure that I read your question, the way to do it is to hit the $sign down here and leave a super chat. That's basically the only way to be 100% sure 99% sure I read your question. Actually, Blunty, last weekend we missed a super chat, and we're gonna. Who is it? Do you remember who was it from? He doesn't remember. He'll come back.
Sorry, I thought it was unmuted. Sidewalk Chalker 87 is who we've got.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Sidewalk Chalker 87, if they show up in the chat, we owe you a super chat. Somehow we missed it last week, but that's how to get your question read on stream. If you need your question answered, you can always email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. Anyone can email me, patron or no. I've been answering people's questions before I even had a Patreon. I'm not going to stop. But if you want your question read on stream, that's how to do it. So, do I have a Bambu affiliate code? No, but I damn well better get one, because I'm going to say very complimentary things about this printer, and people are going to spend money on it, and I need my slice of that. But even if that's going to sound wrong. My theory is that if there's a fantastic product out there that I sincerely love, that I sincerely think you should buy, and I tell you about it and you buy it, as long as that's exactly what would happen anyway, might as well have an affiliate code, right? Like, why not just like take your little slice? If the affiliate then makes you say that something's better than it really is, no. That's not okay. But yeah, I gotta get one. That's true. Yeah, Plastic Dragon, who will be laughing then, the plastic manufacturers, actually. And not our generation, not our children, who will be breathing plastic. But hey, it's all good. Let's see. Toggle pen. Prawn ring. I don't know. I think that's what I'm printing, yes. That is real time. Entertaining Obsidian. That was real time. That's how fast that printer is in real time. And that, my friend, is only 100% speed. It has a sport mode and a ludicrous mode. Sport mode is 125% speed. Ludicrous mode is 166% speed. And depending on the complexity of the print and the quality you desire, if you set it on ludicrous mode, whoosh, the print time goes down by, well, 1/3. It goes even faster, and it's bonkers to see this thing go. If you've never seen, like if you've built a Voron or something, then you're like, oh yeah, I know what a fast printer looks like. If you've never seen a fast printer go before, this thing is bananas how fast it goes. So, what about against the Prusa Mark IV? I don't know, because like, I got to study up on the Prusa line. The Prusa, is that the new one that isn't out yet that's going to be super duper fast? Or is that the one that just came out that isn't super duper fast? I don't think that, does the Prusa Mark IV have input shaping yet? That's the question. There's a version of the Prusa, I think it is the Mark IV, but I think it doesn't have input shaping yet. Yeah, Geisenberg says Mark IV is much slower and does not yet have input shaping. I've seen a video of the Mark IV with experimental firmware with input shaping on it going bananas fast. My opinion is that a bed slinger is fundamentally going to struggle to be as fast as a Core XY printer, because the bed slinger has to move the entire print and the Core XY doesn't. So I don't think the Mark IV is ever going to be as fast as the Bambu, although, Prusa is very, very good at making things. There are other advantages to a Prusa printer, like all the parts being open source. That's kind of a big deal to some people. But just for pure print speed, the Bambu is crazy. Okay. One more question about 3D printing, and then we move on. What software do you use to design 3D printed drone parts? Is Tinkercad good enough? Magneto. Yeah, Magneto. Tinkercad is quite good for basic CAD design. Absolutely. The high-end pros might use something like Fusion 360, but it has a huge learning curve. I've heard of people using Tinkercad very successfully. I've heard of people even using Google SketchUp, although it seems, as near as I can tell, it's less popular than Tinkercad. But starting with Tinkercad is totally a great way to get started. Eventually, you may run into some limitations, perhaps, and then want to use Fusion. I don't know. Like, chat, can Tinkercad do, like, just literally anything you would want it to do? Is the advantage of Fusion 360, like, enterprise stuff that a hobbyist doesn't really care about? Or does Tinkercad, like, fundamentally you hit a ceiling and then you need to leave it behind? I'll leave that. I
can chime in. I may not have found the way to do it properly, but the things I had problems with were like, I needed to make a round part with a hole in it and deviations. So like, in Fusion, you would draw the part and then drag it around and like extrude it into the circle. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't something I could do in Tinkercad that I could, as far as I could tell. So you could do cutouts, like I would make a shape, put it in something and do a cutout basically from the shape. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't able to figure out a way to actually do that sort of extrude function and get more detailed parts of it. So. Yeah.
I'm seeing a comment here from Kevin Sumner, who says, I found Tinkercad frustrating after just basic, simple modifications. Chamfering is difficult on Tinkercad. Aaron FPV says, I find Tinkercad very limiting. Many people are also saying Tinkercad is fine, but it seems like a not insubstantial number of people feel that you hit a ceiling with Tinkercad where you'll want to do stuff it can't do, and then you'll want to maybe move up to something like Fusion 360. But Fusion 360, do they still have the free Fusion 360 license? I think it runs out after a while. Mine ran out, and then they wanted me to pay. And I was like, I don't know about that. It's not cheap. But Tinkercad is a great place to start, for sure. And the feeling of designing something and then printing it is so cool. Like, you're like, oh my God, the world is my oyster. I could do anything. And that's why where's the 3D printing stream? That's why printers like the Bambu are so exciting, because if you can print twice as fast, instead of starting your print and then 4 hours later you come back after lunch and you're like, oh shit, I didn't make it right, I got to change it. You could start your print and then 2 hours later, after mid-morning coffee, you can when you can print twice as fast, you can iterate twice as fast, and that's a big deal. Okay. Welsh FPV, I will be recording a video about the Bambu. You're damn right. Alrighty, let's see here. Let's get some questions about FPV stuff. We had a question here from Tongue Out FPV, who asks, in the Flywoo LR video, the core-only mode was used to flash a flight controller. Will that save the bind and fly tune and just flash the latest firmware? I doubt it. Like, definitely whenever you flash Betaflight from one major version to another, like 4.3 to 4.4, what? Side note, major version is usually the number before the dot, like 3.x versus 4.x. But with Betaflight, it's more like 4.3 is the major version and 4.3.1 is the subversion. Because when you flash from like Betaflight 4.2 to 4.3, 4.3 to 4.4, you always lose your config. It always wipes the config. I'm pretty sure. If you flash from 4.3 to 4.3, I don't know why you would do that, but if you flash 4.3 over 4.3, I don't think it wipes the config unless you enable the erase configuration option. So no, flashing core only will not save the bind and fly tune and flash the latest firmware. The way to do that is to manually save the CLI dump, flash the flight controller, and manually load the CLI dump, except you can't just load a 4.3 CLI dump into 4.4. You have to manually make changes. There are some parts of it that are safe to import and other parts that aren't, and you can't just... So, in fact, this is a great way to sort of make a PSA. I had a conversation today with... I'm not going to name names because I don't want to out them if they don't prefer to be outed. It was with a person who works for a company that makes bind and flies. Let's just put it that way. Could be anybody. And they said, this is so annoying. We are spending so much time with our support desk helping people who bought our bind and flies. And the first thing they do when they buy their bind and fly is they flash it to the newest version of Betaflight, and then they wipe their configuration, and now their quadcopter doesn't work, and they're mad at us. And he was like, I wish there was a way that we could get people to understand that when they buy a bind and fly, it's as ready to, you don't need to flash it. If you know what you're doing, you can flash it. But if you don't know what you're doing, just fly the damn thing. Don't flash it because like you think you need to. And then wipe the config and then take 2 hours of our support agents' time trying to help you get it sorted out. And then be mad and shit talk us on the internet. Because you think our quadcopter's messed up. And I thought I'd put that out there. Stop updating the firmware on bind and flies if you don't know how to do that. You don't need to. Okay.
I just want to chime in one more time. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I would say 30% of my calls that I do for troubleshooting are people who flashed a bind and fly and now they don't know what to do.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. I feel for those people, those simple folk, salt of the earth, dumb folks. Okay, somebody's going to get offended and not realize that's a line from Blazing Saddles because they're young and they have no taste for comedy. I feel for those people because it's reasonable to think that when you update firmware, your configuration would be preserved. That is how firmware, even if you sort of, like when Windows updates, it doesn't just reset your whole computer. So it's reasonable to think that. They don't realize that updating the firmware will wipe it. And they think, sure, of course, like when I buy a DJI drone, what's the first thing I do is I update the firmware. They don't understand that instinct, which is completely reasonable, will screw them over. Because Betaflight is not a consumer-focused piece of hardware. Anyway, I wanted to put that out there. And hopefully someone will see that and not fall into this mistake. IMJM asks, any plans for Walksnail to do dynamic power in their VTX? I assume it does. I'm pretty sure it does. Now, he says, I think it'd be helpful when first plugged in so it isn't blasting 1200 milliwatts a few feet away from you. IMJM, so with Walksnail, the video transmitter does have dynamic power. Pretty sure the goggles do not. So the goggles are always blasting away. I'm pretty sure, is it always or only when you arm? I'm not sure. I can't remember. The best thing you can do is turn on temperature protection, and that will help somewhat. But other than that, no. There are no plans to do something like that. None that I'm aware of. Wes Magyar. Wes Magyar in the Discord. Thank you for being a patron, Wes. I have the SkyZone Cobra X V2 goggles, and I want to get Walk Snail. Should I get the Recon HD or the VRX? Either way, you're going to be using a box goggle. So I would get the Recon HD. So the Recon HD, the latency on the HDMI input on the Cobra X's turns out to be really bad. So I remember it was around 70 milliseconds. It was, to me, unacceptably high. Somewhere out there, there's someone flying Walk Snail through with the Cobra X and says, I don't know what Bardwell's talking about. I think it's fine. More power to you. To me, it was unacceptably high. So I would say the Recon, but it is tempting to get the VRX, since the VRX, if you later get another set of goggles, you can continue to use it. Whereas the Recon is just, that's it. You're done. So I think it depends on whether you're willing, if you're like going to get another set of goggles in the next 6 months, maybe you should buy the VRX and save up for those other goggles. But if you're sticking with the Cobra X for the foreseeable future, I would say get the Recon. The Discord was guessing that I was going to get there. I sure did. We're going to answer super chats. We're going to start answering super chats very shortly. I did want to take first take a minute to just complain and talk about 3D printing and my weekend, but then also take some questions from the folks in the Discord and the regular chat. Let's take just a couple more questions from the regular chat, and then we will start our super chat streak. A streak of super chats. I'm going to invent that. The super chat streak. Certified Fun Instructor asks XT30 versus XT60 on a 3.5-inch build. Conflicting info online and building right now. So to me, I think that you almost certainly should use an XT30. What I always do when I'm trying to decide between XT30 and XT60 is look at the batteries I'm going to use and look at what connector they come with. The battery will have a connector that is sized appropriately for the current that the battery is capable of providing, and that's going to be the limiting factor. The problem is that in the 3.5-inch size is right on the dividing line. Like, you could get 1,000 milliamp hour 4S with an XT60, and you can get 1,000 milliamp hour 4S with an XT30. 850 milliamp hours, they almost always come with XT30s, I think, but there are some out there with XT60s. I think the majority of 850 4S batteries that you would use on a build like this are going to be XT30s. If you're putting a lithium ion pack on there, it's going to be XT30. I think most batteries that you will end up using are going to be XT30, so that's what I would probably use. If you know a particular battery that you want to use and it has an XT60, then put an XT60. That's how I would handle that.
Can I ask a question relative to this?
For sure.
Why? So isn't XT30 named that supposedly because it can handle 30 amps?
Supposedly. Yeah.
So, yeah. So is there, I would guess that people are thinking that you need to use that as the rating to decide when to choose what connector to use.
That's a good point. Like, I've done battery testing with the XT60, and it can handle, I tested as high as 120 amps, and it was fine. That 60 amp rating for an XT60 or 30 amp rating for an XT30, I'm guessing that it is a continuous rating, as in it can do 30 amps like forever without melting. Whereas when I did a 120 amp test on an XT60, in 45 seconds the battery was drained and the test was over. So the XT60 would have gotten hot and melted, except that the battery was done. And that's why when we use XT60 on a quadcopter and we're regularly pulling 80 amps or 100 amps, but only for a fraction of a second or maybe a few seconds, the XT60 is fine. So yeah, that XT30, you could easily pull more than 30 amps and not melt it as long as it's not continuous. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, well, if we both think it's right, then that's all we need, really.
It'd be nice. I would just say, I'm sure there's documentation somewhere because we're not the only people who use them, but it would be nice to know, what can it take? Like, does it matter how hot is it outside? Is it 60 or 120 on the XT30? You know,
it always matters how hot it is, right? Ambient temperature always matters, right?
Right.
The flip side is that on a quadcopter in flight, you've got so much airflow. Like, I'm guessing the actual current rating is insane. The real test would be if you had something like a big Cine lifter with like an 8,000 milliamp hour 6S that could pull 200 amps for 5 minutes or whatever. I didn't do the math. That's where an XT60 would be like, oh crap, I'm melting. And that's why those batteries will probably use XT90s or something bigger. One more question I really want to take before we get to the super chats. Is there a way to remove the stock Foxeer and RunCam OSD? Yes, there are two menus in those cameras. One is you click the joystick. One is you press and hold up on the joystick. The menu that lets you remove the stock OSD is hold up on the joystick. There you go. Black Jungle, Blunty, Black Jungle's got a data sheet for us for an XT30. 30 amps is the peak and 15 amps is continuous, according to this data sheet. How about that? Whereas an XT60 is... oh, wow. XT60 is only rated for 60 amps peak. How about that?
So do we think that's based on... like being under the acceptable working temperature? Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, it's not degrading immediately because we use them. Yeah. So I wonder what that means. Like, is that like a breakdown of something happening, or?
I mean, do you think that it was done in any sort of rigorous and meaningful way, or do you think they just like pulled it out of their ass?
Also, as we know, we don't buy the same XT60 connectors. Like, we're not all buying AMAS connectors too. So.
Correct. Yeah. I think the reality is that there's so much airflow and our peak current is so surgy that it's the XT. I mean, I'm not sure I'd run a 5-inch on an XT30, but I think there's plenty of headroom there. That's what I would say. Alrighty, let's go to the super chats. We're half hour into the stream. I haven't read a single super chat. The way this works is I'm going to start answering super chats, and we're going to keep going till we clear them out. So if you want me to answer your question like right now, leave a super chat, and you have a good chance of getting in this block. And currently, we just have about 5 or 7 super chats, so we'll see how long this takes. Stevens Box, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm trying to set different tune presets in different PID profiles. Some parameters seem global, like the gyro filter multiplier. Is there a workaround? No. So certain parameters are profile specific. Certain parameters are global. And actually, if we look here in the flight controller, hold on. Let me plug a flight controller in. And if we look here in the PID tuning tab, so in the filter settings, it has profile independent filter settings and profile dependent filter settings. Everything on this right side of the screen is part of the PID profile. Everything on the left side of the screen is global. By the way, a side note, these on-off boxes are so badly placed. Betaflight devs, someone, fix this! Help! I don't know how to use GitHub. I just like to shout at people on live streams, and somehow it seems to actually work sometimes. These are so badly placed because it implies that this on-off is you're turning the profile filter settings on or off. It's not. These on-off just turn the slider on and off. That's all they do. There should be another option called use slider, yes or no, or on or off. Or I don't know what you could call it. Same here. All this is telling you is that these are the profile-dependent filter settings. These are the independent filter settings. But if we go to the PID profile settings, I guess everything here is profile-dependent. Yeah, that makes sense. Of course. Okay. So everything you see... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't know that that's true. Is that...
No, but it says right here, PID profile settings.
I agree with what it says, but I'm not sure if every single set, like some of those settings on the right, I'm sure all the bars and sliders.
Oh.
Are
like which one do you think might not be? Which one do you think might be global?
I'm trying to think, but I feel like I looked at this one time, and well, one way we could tell that I remember you looked at last time was pulling the CLI dump, and you can see a list of all the profile settings, right?
Sure.
So that's another option.
I'm gonna propose, until proven otherwise, that everything in this tab is profile dependent. Everything in this tab is rate profile dependent. That's not what you asked about, but just for the sake of completeness. And here on the filter settings, everything on the left is global and everything on the right is part of the profile. The other thing you can do, if you're curious about this, as Blenty pointed out, is you can do a dump all, and in the CLI dump, any minute now, you can see this is rate profile 3 and everything here is in a rate profile. And then it says profile. This is your PID profile, profile 3. And everything here is in the PID profile. And then everything else is global. So, but there is no way for you to change what's global and what's not without recompiling Betaflight. Something just disconnected from my computer and I don't know what it was and I'm not happy about it. But the stream still seems to be running. Blunty, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, well. Alrighty. Continuing with our super chat bonanza. Isaac Mitchell, thank you for $2 super chat. Nothing to say but whoop whoop. Jeremy Luke, thank you for a $5 super chat. I want analog goggles. I have a TBS Fusion already, which is just by HD0. I probably won't use them for HD. Jeremy, that's very tempting. The HD0 goggles are excellent analog goggles. They have a comb filter. I don't know if anybody else has a comb filter, do they? I'm not really sure what a comb filter does, but it seems like if you had a choice to get one, you'd probably want one, wouldn't you? No, it's a thing that makes the video look better, the analog video. They have a deinterlacer that's better than other ones. Their DVR, their recording of analog DVR is incredible. They have a built-in microphone, which is very nice for when you're recording DVR, just for, even if you're just making notes to yourself or something. They're very good. The downside of them is they're expensive, and you have to put the module in a big holder off the side of the goggles, which is kind of unwieldy. If you're never going to use them for digital, I would think about getting something like the Orca FPV-1. This is the worst time to recommend the Orca FPV-1, given the gigantic kerfuffle they just went through. Oh my God, when Louis Rossman makes a video about an FPV product, you know it's a bad day for that product. May Louis Rossman never talk about any of the products I make, because chances are he's not going to be complimenting them. He's going to be roasting them. Oops. So, I'd be tempted to think about the Orca goggles. They are very, very good analog goggles. If there's a chance you'll one day try HD0, then obviously HD0 goggles. I personally use the HD0 goggles as my analog daily driver, for what it's worth. But I also fly a bunch of other stuff. Alexi F, thank you for 20,000 COP Colombian pesos. I was more excited about that 20,000. before I looked up the exchange rate between Colombian pesos and US dollars. Thank you for your generous donation. Regardless of, I saw 20,000, I got kind of excited. Alexi. Colombia's a lovely country. Hi, the Flywoo page says to select Flywoo F405 Pro firmware, but you flashed Flywoo F405 in your video. What's the difference and which is correct? I'll tell you. Good question. Did I just screw up? I mean, I don't know. It worked. Where's the beta flight 4.4 update? Nope, wrong screen. Sorry. Yeah, this is a one. Let's see. Where's the link? I'm gonna be hush, Bardwell. So this is where Flywoo sends you, and what they say to do is Flywoo F405 Pro. Huh. Did I choose Flywoo F4? Did I screw up? I mean, I guess it seems to have worked. What's the difference? Here's the thing. I wonder if these two boards are so similar that the core only option is the same between them. That's an interesting proposition. Obviously, you should do what Flywoo says. I did not. If I used Flywoo F405 and not F405 Pro, I didn't mean to do that. It wasn't for any intentional reason. Let's look. Let's see if... Save config. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It sure looks like I flashed Flywoo F405 and not Flywoo F405 Pro. What's the difference? The Goku F405 Pro. What does it add? Barometer, black box. What's the F405 have? I don't want the Pro. Versatile F405. Huh. So I don't know for sure. You should do what Flywoo said, which is F405 Pro. Maybe the reason I got away with it is that when you flash the core, there was enough similarities between the F405 and the F405 Pro target that everything worked. Because the next thing you do is you paste in a CLI dump with all the resource assignments. So the core just loads the drivers, and then the resource assignments are in the CLI dump. My guess is that's why I got away with it. But no, you're right. You should do what Flywoo tells you to do, not what I did in the video. Interesting. Well, yeah. Okay. Continuing our super chat, our run of super chats. We got about 5 left. If you guys want to leave a super chat, it will be one of the next 5 or 6 questions I answer. So if you're interested in me getting to them promptly, now's the time to do it. Quad City Bay Area asks, thank you for a $5 super chat. Quad City Bay Area, is it safe to say that DJI developers are better, that Walksnail, the system is better? Quad City Bay Area, I see why someone would say that, because the Walksnail hardware is more powerful. Well, it's certainly more powerful than the V2 DJI system. I think it might be more powerful, just the raw sort of processing power. I'm not sure if it's more powerful than the O3. I do think it's safe to say that DJI developers are better than Walksnail, but hang on. I mean, DJI is a multi-billion-dollar company. Walksnail is... For Walksnail developers to do what they have done with the resources that they have available is extraordinary. Walksnail has achieved so much, considering that, like, I'm guessing There's like two guys, sitting in a room somewhere with laptops. I'm joking. Walksnail, please don't take offense. Like DJI probably has, a whole floor of the building devoted to their FPV engineers, their video system engineers. And Walksnail just doesn't have those resources. So it's not that any individual DJI developer is necessarily like better than any individual Walksnail developer. I'm speculating here, but there's no question that DJI churns out results that just make not just Walksnail, but like every other company, they just churn out these amazing products, and every single one of them is in some ways class leading, if not in multiple ways, because, well, not just because they have a lot of money, but because they use that money to hire very, very good engineers, and lots of them, and they're just very good at that. I think that if not just Walksnail, if any company out there had as much money as DJI, they might still not be as good as DJI, because DJI is clearly very good at developing technology and pushing boundaries and making products that do things that stuff didn't used to do. And they have maintained that position for 15 years? Certainly. I think that's safe to say, maybe longer. And so just because DJI has money is not the only reason that they're class leading, but they have money and are very good at hiring talent and using that talent to develop products. And anybody who doesn't have billions of dollars to play with is already at a disadvantage. So for Walksnail to do what they've done is an incredible achievement. But, I think that it's hard to compete with DJI.
I just want to mention one more thing, which is don't forget that DJI makes drones. All those drones use OcuSync.
Sure.
So this isn't like, not only do they have a bunch of money, but it's not just like an FPV team of engineers. They're building on the foundations that DJI has been building for, I think the first OcuSync was 8 to 10 years, and OcuSync is built off the back of another system that was before that. All their drones have the P1 chip and the S1 chip and, like this new E3 chip and stuff. So there's just so many resources, like you were saying, but it's just multiple teams working on multiple products and multiple releases, and the volume. And the other thing I've heard from multiple sources is that DJI mops up fresh engineers and gets them to work essentially for free out of college because they want to work for DJI and get it on their resume. And they absorb all the best people into their teams, and so they have essentially unlimited people resources too. Yeah,
interesting. I've been there are a few times in my life where I've met somebody and gone, oh wow, this guy's on another level. Like, where you almost feel like you're in the room with a superhuman. Like I'm thinking of Magnus Carlsen, the chess grandmaster. Some people say certainly the best chess player today. Some people say maybe the best chess player of all time. And obviously I don't play chess, but like I think of people like that and go, if you were to play chess with him, you'd be like, what is this? What is happening here? It's just superhuman. You've people who can lift 800 pounds. They're just unbelievable. And I've been a few times in my life. I've met people. If I were pressed, I'm not sure I could give you a name right now. The person I'm thinking of actually right now is no one you'd ever know. It's just a person I met once. And I was like, Jesus, this guy is really smart. Like, this person is accomplishing things and able to do things on a level that I can't really even comprehend. And then imagine that you had $1 billion and could hire and find as many of those people as you want. And now you put them all in a room together and they all make something. And you're like, oh, okay, now I see why you make good products. Anyway, Thank you for that question. It's a good question. Black Jungle, thank you for a 5 Brazilian Ray Eyes. Thanks for on the entertainment and help with the FPV community. Sundae with fries, yay or nay? Ice cream sundae with fries? Okay, so there's a thing at Wendy's fast food here in America. I don't know if that Wendy's is probably in Brazil, right? Surely. And they have for Frosty, which is like a chocolate ice cream, soft serve ice cream milkshake sort of thing. And people eat it with fries. I appreciate how you can have like a salty thing dipped in a sweet cold thing. I'm not sure I like that combination though. I'm not sure I like that combination. I'm going to say no. I've tried the Frosty with fries before. In concept, I could see how it could work, but it didn't work for me. I don't think that exact combo works. Steven's Box, thank you for a $5 super chat. Continuing. Oh, no, more super chats came in. We're going to keep doing super chats and try to keep clearing this out. Steven's Box, thank you for a $5 super chat. My 5-inch quad, a Zing 2 2306 motors never get above lukewarm. Am I getting all I can get out of them? So, Steven's Box, the question is, are you happy with the tune? If your motors are super cool, then theoretically you could push your D gains higher, and theoretically that could give you a better tune. But if you're perfectly happy with like the prop wash performance of the tune, if it's smooth, then no, you're good. You're good. There's no reason to feel like you're not getting enough power out of them. No. I think it's the tune more than... as long as the motors are not ridiculously overpropped or the quad is not ridiculously heavy, then what makes the motors hot is the PID tune being too aggressive. But if the quad flies fine, then the PID tune is fine. Jack Suns FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Is Betaflight 4.4 much better than 4.3? Betaflight 4.4 has some killer features. The GPS rescue is significantly improved. It has a high definition canvas. So if you fly with a digital FPV system, I'm highly motivated to be on 4.4 for all my digital quads. What other killer features of 4.4? As far as the PID loop goes, there are some improvements, but if you've got a quad that flies great on 4.3, I don't think I would rush to upgrade. If you've got a quad that flies bad on 4.3, maybe it'll fly better on 4.4. I think Betaflight 4.4 has a few killer features that might draw you, but if you've got a quad that flies well on 4.3, and those killer features don't appeal to you, just stay on 4.3. It's not a big deal. Continuing to clear out the super chats. Thank you, $5. Thank you for $5 from Paul McDonald. I still fly the Fat Shark Transformers. I'm loving the view, size, FOV, etc. What new goggles do you think would best suit me for a replacement? Nothing. Like, the Fat Shark Transformers are a good quality box goggle with a big screen. Like, the big weakness of does the Transformers have a module bay? I think they didn't. So you won't be able to have the best receiver module. But I don't think there's, like, any other analog goggle you get. I think it's going to have a smaller screen than the Transformers. I mean, like, today, the best analog goggle you can buy is probably the Skyzone Cobra. Analog box goggle is probably the Skyzone Cobra X. And it has a good receiver module. But I think it has a smaller screen than the... I'd have to check. I'm not sure about that. The Transformers do not have a module bay, Kevin Sumner. So the main reason I would have for leaving the Transformers would be that I want a really good analog module, like the Skyzone Steady View module, like the TBS Fusion, or the Immersion RC Rapid Fire. Those are going to be a significant upgrade. Dark Noodle, thanks for a $5 super chat. What do you think is better, Crossfire or FreeSky receivers? Crossfire? What? What do you think is better? A steak or a McDonald's hamburger? And not even like a quarter pounder, but like the little 89-cent single. Which is better? Like, okay, the hamburger, it's not like the hamburger is like just a piece of crab. I'll eat it. But no, the steak is clearly better. Crossfire is clearly better. No, like better range, better build quality, easier to manage the firmware. The only way that FreeSky receivers are better than Crossfire, even remotely, is that they can be less expensive. Okay, but you're getting a lot less. Crossfire is better. Sorry, Dark Noodle. I don't want to like, I realize I don't want you to sound like I'm picking on you for asking that question like that was a dumb question. That wasn't a dumb question. I assume that you asked the question because you didn't know the answer. So there's nothing wrong with that question. But like, there's no sort of equivocation about that answer. Crossfire is just better in every way except price. Which goggles have better quality, DJI 2 or HD0? DJI 2. In terms of image quality, DJI 2, no question. HD0 excels in terms of latency and has other advantages, but in terms of image quality and usable range, it's the DJI system. I don't think there's really a debate about that either. Oh, Sayword, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for dedicating your time to keep us in the air. Thanks for dedicating your money to keep me in Bachgrinder t-shirts. Thank you for the support, Sayword. Really appreciate it. Coelho FPV, any intel on whether the DJI V2 goggles will be back in stock? Thanks for a $5 super chat. Coelho, I hesitate to answer this question. Wait, my bets a little bit. Like, I remember when the Goggles 2 was coming out saying, you should think about whether DJI will continue to support the Vista and the V2 goggles because the release of it.
Sorry,
what's that?
Stream Pros. Everybody in the chat saying Stream Pros.
Oh,
It's
moving for me. It'll be back. It's back.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. So stream's back. Yay. Okay, continuing. So I remember saying when the V2, when the Goggles 2 came out, that you should think about whether DJI will continue supporting the Vista and the V2 system, because the release of a new generation is the time when that would. And I said DJI, doesn't necessarily keep old product lines going when a new product line is available. Maybe I said things a little stronger than that, but I'm pretty sure, and you can go back through the FPV news if you really want to and see, but I'm pretty sure I never said DJI is going to drop the V2 system. And when the Goggles 2 came out and the V2 continued to be supported and in fact received new firmware upgrades and so forth, I was like, well, shoot, it turned out that didn't pan out, but I still think it was a valid concern. And right now, I am hearing from people who have dealer accounts that they're not able to get the V2 goggles. And they are telling their customers, I'm not talking about retail stores here, but individuals who have DJI dealer accounts or access to dealers who buy wholesale and then sell those, to I guess they're middlemen. But I'm hearing from some of these people that they're not able to get the DJI V2s anymore. And they think that DJI is not going to make them anymore. Now, I'm telling you that. That's true. And maybe that means that DJI is not making the V2 goggle anymore and they've discontinued it. There has not been, as far as I know, any official announcement, and that could change in the future. But right now, it feels like if you desperately want a V2 goggle, they are hard to find right now and will get harder to find in the future. Especially if you want a new one instead of a used one. Used goggles, I think, used V2 goggles are going to be around for a long time because there's just so many of them out there. But I think that there is some reason to believe that the V2 goggles are not going to be made in the near future. And now people will say, Bardwell says DJI V2 goggles discontinued. And then 6 months from now, people say, remember that time when Bardwell said the V2 goggles were discontinued and then they weren't? And I'll be like, I didn't say that! But no one will remember. Continuing the Super Chat Bonanza. We keep almost catching up on Super Chats, and you guys keep leaving more Super Chats. We will get back to the regular chat and the Discord, but we'll keep running Super Chats as long as you guys keep leaving them. Edgar Valles. Valles? Oh, well. Thank you for a $5 Super Chat. If a motor has stripped threads on one hole, what can I do without buying a new motor? Only use the other screws. It's a Gepard C rocket. Let's see how many screw holes he has. How many screw holes does there's 2, 3, or 4? I think. Oh, whoops, wrong screen. Sorry. Ooh, that was a fun little quad. I remember this quad. This was one of the first. Is it a 2-inch? Oh man, this was one of the first 2 inches to carry a full-size DJI Air unit. What an idea! They're gonna put the Vista didn't exist yet. This would be so much better with a Vista, but damn, pretty impressive for what it was. I think these motors. How many screw holes do they have? Show me the bottom. Show me the booty. That's not the booty. That's the top. Okay, what motor is it? Captain Drone. What motor? Motors GR1204 5000. I think it's a 4 motor.
Chat says 4 holes.
I think so too. I just want to find the damn picture. Yeah, okay. Okay, so just use 3 screws and don't even worry about it. Yeah. If you're really nervous, use blue Loctite to secure the screws. Yeah, you're fine. Don't even think about it. I mean, I've gone as low as 2 screws before. Again, if you use Loctite, they probably won't let go and you'll probably be all right. Scorpio 6. Thank you for a $10 super chat. I just hit my 1-year anniversary in FPV. This hobby would not have been possible without you. Thanks for... Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you to say. 1JSTN. Thank you for a $5 super chat. My school's giving me a TBS Unify Pro because they were going to build a drone, but the teacher got fired. Should I take it? Even if I run high def? Sure, take it. You can't use it. Give it to somebody else. I would say this. If you receive a gift or charity and you can't use it, consider the temptation might be to sell it and be like, hey, I keep the cash. Consider gifting it, pay it forward. If you really need the cash, do what you got to do. But sure, take it. Then give it to somebody else. Find somebody who needs it more. Absolutely. Quad City Bay Area. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm disappointed, Walk Snail. Why are they working on share mode and not 1,200 milliwatts and a reliable system? Quad City Bay Area, I will say, I ranted a little while back about how gosh dang long it had been that Walk Snail had not developed audience mode. Audience mode is important. If you race, audience mode is important. Just so you can spectate the race. But I've done training where I'm teaching somebody how to fly, and I'm like, okay, what channel are you on? And I'm gonna jump on their channel. Can't do that. And it's such a pain in the ass to plug a USB into the side of their goggle and have to look at a screen. I know if you don't ever use audience mode, then you're like, well, who uses audience mode? There's people out there who just would never use it. Maybe they fly by themselves a lot of the time. I get that. But there's people out there for whom audience mode was a big freaking deal. It's really good that they finally freaking developed it. I think that a lot, I don't know, I can't really speak for them, but I think they are also trying to improve their system in other ways. I don't think it's necessarily an either or. But I would reply by saying that share mode is hardly a throwaway item. And if it seems like it is to you, trust me, it's not to a lot of other people. One more super chat. One more. Okay, this is it. We're almost caught up on super chats. Thank you for a $5 super chat, Fred Wild. Thanks for getting me into FPV. I have the iFlight Nazgul. When I hook it to Betaflight, the USB broke off. Is my only option replacing the flight controller? Fred, realistically, that's probably what you're going to end up doing. There are options. There are options. Oscar Leong has a great tutorial. Man, this guy is a freaking rock star. If he made videos instead of web pages, I would be in big trouble because he is a rock star. That's real. I'm really glad that we're both out there. I feel like me and Oscar Leong are like the Superman and the Batman of the FPV. I just picked them out of, like we have different powers and complement each other in different ways. He does like blog style printed content. I do video content. It's great. There's probably better superheroes for me to have picked than Superman and Batman. And which is which? Am I Batman? Or is he Batman? I don't know. But if you did break it off, there are things you can try to do to fix it. They're all a pain in the ass, and many of them won't work. So if you have the money, just buy a new flight controller and try to be more careful next time. Also, definitely contact iFlight, because it really shouldn't have broken off. Like, it's possible iFlight will consider this to be a warrantyable defect and will send you a new one for free. It's possible. I'm not making you any promises, but at least ask. $5 super chat here from Damian Posey. What would be the best HD goggle that would be supported in the future for the money? I don't think that's the right way to pick a video system, to tell you the truth. Like, let's say that you decide that HD0 is the best choice because it's open source. Do you want to fly HD0 every day? Is future-proofness like the most important thing to you? Really? How future-proof does a video system need to be? So, like the Goggles 2 just came out. The V2 goggles have been around for 4 years. And there's just now some signs that maybe they won't be made, but they'll still be available on the used market. Vistas are still available new. So we got 4, 5, 6, maybe a little more years on the V2 system. That's pretty good. The Goggles 2 just came out. Probably will have a similar run. Is that enough for you? Is HD0 more future-proof because it's open source? On the other hand, HD0 is a pretty small company. I mean, like, DJI is not going to go out of business in the next 5 years. I'm not saying HD0 is. But if I said, pick one of these two companies to go out of business in the next 5 years, HD0 or DJI, go. You must pick one. I think the safe money, right? So I'm just saying, like, there's various things you could think about in terms of future-proofing. But what you should do, in my opinion, is pick the video system that you like to fly and buy that one. And then solve your future-proofing problem a different way. Like by buying extra or something. Alexi F., thank you for another 20,000 Colombian pesos. Flywheel refuses to ship batteries if I'm not buying a drone. Is this common? Yes, 100%. There are all kinds of restrictions. I mean, I'm not saying everybody does it, but there are all kinds of restrictions on international shipping of LiPos. They are imposed by the carriers, not by the store, and the stores have to decide how they're going to manage that. So one of the rules that might create a gray area is that batteries sent as part of an appliance get an exemption. And maybe Flywoo thinks that if they send you batteries with a drone, then like plausible deniability, that's part of an appliance and they're part of that exception. But shipping lipos by themselves is like no gray area. Just can't do it. They are not full of shit for doing this. And that's just the way it is. The problem is that you can't carry lipos on an airplane. Bare lipos on an airplane, I think, is the rule. So they would have to go by ship, and it would take for freaking ever, and nobody's going to do that. And that, my friends, catches us up on the Super Chats, at least for now. So we are going to take a break from the Super Chats, but not from the live stream. And we're going to go back to oh, what have I done? We're going to go back to the queued up questions, the regular questions. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little story. And this story is about the sponsor of today's live stream, Surfshark VPN. You know, I spend a lot of time answering people's questions. And people are not shy about asking me questions about FPV. In fact, people sometimes just walk up to me in public and are like, hey, are you Joshua Bardwell? Hey, I'm not joking. This week, I'm not joking. I'm not bragging either, but it was kind of flattering. My wife and I went to a restaurant to have a little dinner, just her and me. And my server came up and said, are you Joshua Bardwell? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, the manager over there told me to come ask if you were Joshua Bardwell because he thought he recognized you. I was like, yep, that's me. So I went and shook his hand and said hello. He didn't ask me any questions about FPV because he probably didn't want to. He was being respectful of my meal. But sometimes when you don't want to ask questions, it's because those questions are embarrassing. Maybe there's something you're wondering about and you don't like the idea that someone would be snooping. Maybe you want to research something that's a little questionable. You don't want your ISP snooping on you. That's when you need a VPN. Surfshark VPN. There's lots of other uses for VPNs, though. Like, once upon a time, I traveled to a certain country. And they had a firewall, a great firewall. It was such a good firewall. You might even call it the Great Firewall. And it prevented access to sites in the outside, like Facebook and Google and so forth. And I certainly, that's unacceptable. I used a VPN to get through that, get around this government censorship, and could carry on with connecting with the people that I wanted to connect to. But my favorite feature of a VPN, because like most of the time I'm just at home, so what do I need? And I'm not like researching stuff that's sketchy. My favorite feature is you can bring up the VPN. Oop, right here. You can bring up the VPN. Here it is, Surfshark. And you could just pick where you want to be in the world, and your internet will look like you're there. So like, what does my website look like from Denmark? Boom. Click, open the VPN. It's encrypted, and I'm in Denmark. It's great because, like, a lot of times you can watch content in other countries. Like, if I have a Netflix subscription, Netflix in Canada has different content than Netflix in the USA. And maybe some USA shows that aren't available. I was just trying to watch Diners and Dives, and it's not available for streaming anywhere. Maybe it's available for streaming in Canada or Chile. VPN can do that for you. Surfshark helps you protect your personal data from eavesdroppers, bypass censorship and tracking, and virtually travel the world without lifting a finger. Surfshark can be used on unlimited devices, including PC, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, and more. They've got 24/7 support and a strict no logging policy, which means they don't collect your data no matter what. Right now, Surfshark is offering 3 months of extra on their subscription with a QR code on screen right there. Use that QR code, or use the link in the video description below. Use promo code JoshuaVPN for three months free. There's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, yeah, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Hey, listen. Okay, that's the ad read. If you use VPNs, take a look at Surfshark VPN. Look at what people are saying about Surfshark in the comments. I don't have anything to do with that, but I've seen people say really complimentary things. It's a pretty good price and pretty good performance. And, yeah, maybe consider it. Okay, that's the ad read. Thank you. Thanks, Surfshark VPN, for paying me to say that. Appreciate it. What is that, a QR for ants? Hey, you scan the QR. Okay, let's take some questions from the regular chat. Adventure Mate says, how many servos can I get to work with the SpeedyBee F405 V3? Do I solder the servos onto the SpeedyBee, or do I need an adapter? Interesting. I'm just looking at my live stream stats. They're being a little flaky. Anyway, we'll keep going. I don't know the max number of servos it can support. That's going to depend on the number of timers. I believe that servos require timers, and I don't know how many timers are available. Certainly, you can do 1 servo per motor output if you're not using those motor outputs for motors. So the SpeedyBee F405, let's look. Certainly, it has at least 4. Does it have 8? SpeedyBee F405. How many motor outputs? Oh my goodness gracious. 4 UARTs. How many motors? Come on. 8 motor support. Okay. So the SpeedyBee F405 supports up to 8 motors. That would make me think that it supports at least 8 servos. Most flight controllers today are designed to be able to do D-shot on all the motor outputs, which means each motor output has a dedicated timer. That's a requirement. So if you have 4 motors on a quadcopter, you should be able to get at least 4 servos on the remaining 4 motor outputs. I think. That's not 100% guarantee, but I think that's a reasonable assumption. In addition, you could get an additional servo on the LED strip output, which also always has a dedicated timer. So I think you're going to get at least 5 servos and 4 motors, or 9 servos and no motors, or anything in between. As far as the wiring, you're definitely going to need a separate voltage regulator to power the servos. The servos can pull more power than the voltage regulator on the flight controller can give. So you absolutely need a dedicated voltage regulator. How big should it be? I don't really know. How many amps is a safe bet to power a servo? Like when you size a voltage regulator, how many amps per servo do you spec? Anybody tell me in the chat. Blunty points out that on some cheaper flight controllers, they use bit-bang D-shot, which doesn't have a timer for all the motors. Blunty, you don't happen to know if that's... I mean, is that true for the SpeedyBee? I don't think so.
I don't know, because a lot of the targets set bit-bang D-shot to auto instead of off, and it's hard to tell by looking at the target, because I was going to look at the dump to find out.
Interesting.
But you can't tell if it's on or off. It's set to auto, so it may trigger, it may not.
Well... That's why I say I think it's a reasonable assumption, but I don't know for sure. There's my hitch. The other thing you used to see, and I don't think this is common anymore, is you'd have an 8-motor flight controller, but only the first 4 motors had D-shot capability, which, like, that's dumb. No one would do that today, but there was a transition period where D-shot was relatively new, and not all flight controllers fully supported it. As far as setting up and wiring the servos, I suggest you look at this video, Betaflight 4.3 Servos tab, complete walkthrough, part 14. And I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. That will tell you about how to configure and wire it up. But that's going to be a little more detail that I'm going to go into here on the stream. here's a question from Mo in the Discord. Is there any flight controller with an open UART smart audio capable? You need a UART TX pad, but yeah, I don't see why not. I'm trying to think if there's some weird combination of things. Anytime you've got a spare TX pad, you could do smart audio. Daniel Christ, I did look on, thank you for looking that up for me. I did look on Prime Video. You need an additional subscription to watch Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives on Prime Video. It's not just your Prime. Is it on Prime? That was on Hulu. Is it on Prime? Is it free on Prime if you have a Prime subscription? Ooh. I went to this restaurant in Atlanta, or Marietta, technically. This restaurant that I used to go to when I lived there that I missed and loved. And I found out they had been on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I wanted to watch it. Yeah, but you, yeah, see, so you need a Discovery Plus trial. Yeah, it's not available. It's a trick. It's available on Prime Video if, unavailable to watch in your location. Aha! Surfshark! I'm not going to do this on stream because I'm worried that if I start a VPN in the middle of a stream, it'll F up my stream. Do you see how this video is currently unavailable to watch in your location? I'm 100% going to try to use Surfshark VPN to go to a different country and see if I can watch this in a different country after the stream is over. It's not even pirating. To the Max asks, what is the cheapest way to build that wooden obstacle out in your yard? PVC and lumber prices are outrageous. I used wood from fence panels that got ripped up. The fence panels were rotten and replaced, but there was enough good wood to kind of cobble it together into an obstacle. I don't know, man. Find scrap lumber that you can salvage. I mean, by the time you take into account the hassle of doing it, shoot. I think PVC is probably the cheapest. The problem with PVC is it's super floppy. So you'd want to use like 1-inch PVC. Maybe EMT conduit is going to be stiffer. Black iron pipe is going to be heavy as crap. I don't think you want to use that. Like, if you can salvage wood, you could probably figure out a way to make something, but that's going to be it's going to be a giant hassle. The city dump doesn't ever let you take stuff away. City dumps, I mean, I can't speak for sure for your city dump, but I've never seen a city dump that let you scavenge. They don't want people doing that because it'd be a nightmare in terms of liability. Joel Gulio says, I've got a Blitz Mini Ev7 that stopped putting out 5-volt power. I soldered a 5-volt regulator and I'm getting the second set of arming tones, meaning the flight controller is powered up, but 5-volt is not getting to the VTX or to any other 5-volt pad. Joel, the only thing I can think of that would cause this is some flight controllers have a special 5-volt pad that is just for the receiver. And what's different about that 5-volt pad is that it powers up from USB. And that means you can power the receiver up when you plug the flight controller into USB. And so you can like find your receiver without plugging in a battery, and that's super convenient. That 5-volt pad will have a diode between it and the other 5-volt pads to prevent the USB power from powering up all your other 5-volt stuff that isn't the receiver. If you were to connect your 5-volt regulator to that 5-volt pad, then what you described would be happening. So I would suggest you move the 5-volt regulator to any other 5-volt pad and see if that fixes it. If not, then I'm a little stumped. Kevin Sumner wants to know, the AOS 5 V3 comes with camera plates that use soft inserts to hold the camera. Kevin speculates that they're rubber. I think they're actually silicone, but that would be my guess. Any thoughts on the durability? It's probably pretty durable. Silicone's commonly used in that case. I mean, if you think it'd be better to use a washer under the screw head, sure, that won't hurt. But I bet it's not actually necessary. What polarization are the stock DJI V2 antennas? Asks Nasty FPV. The DJI V2 antennas are left-hand polarized.
Linear.
Blunty? Linear? Damn it. Are they really?
Yep. Dual band linear on the V2. V1 was left hand. V2 is dual band linear.
Wow. I knew the goggles too were linear. Wow. What about the Vista antenna?
Left hand. They didn't ever change them. They're the same as they were for V1. So Vistas are all left hand polarized.
Well, that's stupid. Why would you? That's stupid.
As It's Not Sam points out, the reason is because the DJI Potato is linear, and so is the Avata. It's all in the feet of those drones, so they just use linear antennas for those.
I'm annoyed. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. So, if you have the V2 goggles, all the more reason to not use the stock antennas. Unless you, like, fly the Potato, in which case you deserve everything you get. Because no one should fly the Potato. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Kent J has an interesting question. It is too small to show up on screen. I'll read it out. Most people agree that for cinematic video, shutter speed should be double your frame rate, ISO as low as possible, and then use an ND filter to properly expose. That is a common advice. What if you're doing a fly-through of an indoor venue that starts outside and then flies into the venue? What's the best way to adjust for the outdoor to indoor transition? Auto ISO, auto shutter, etc. I will say, if any like cinema pros weigh in and say this is how we do it, you should listen to them. I am not a cinema pro. I don't do a lot of this type of flying professionally, so I will defer to anybody who actually does this for a living. But I would say there's a couple ways to approach this that I've seen people use. One of them is to cut the shot. So you hide the transition. Like as you fly through the window, you do a little cut of some kind, maybe a crossfade, maybe, I don't know. You figure out a way to hide the cut. And you do two shots, one with correct exposure for the outside and one with correct exposure for the inside. And you manage that transition manually in the editor. I think that most people would agree that you should not use auto exposure because the camera adjusting exposure is going to ruin the interior shot. I think most people are probably going to, like pros are going to say that. Captain Kazi says tent the outside if you can afford it. I assume Captain Kazi means have a great big tent outside that if you're going to open with like a wide shot of the whole building and then turn and fly in through a door or window, you're not going to tent that. Captain Kazi says if you have no choice, then go with auto aperture, obviously not auto shutter. And Captain Kazi says auto ISO, I guess, is going to give you too much noise. The problem is that if you're using like a GoPro, the aperture is fixed, at which point ISO would be the only one you could use.
Did you see that pinned comment I made there?
Oh, very nice. Good point. Thank you, Plenty. Flying Grip points out that GoPro Labs firmware has some settings that change the speed at which the GoPro reacts to scene changes, which causes it to change slower or faster, which can make it like less. I think you would make it slower so it's less obvious that it's hunting. Siati says, when I've had that situation, I've flown it 3 times. Once with the proper outdoor exposure, once with auto, and once with the proper indoor exposure. And then the editor deals with it. Very nice. Captain Kazi is a commercial director in Hollywood, so definitely have some trust in their opinion. Yeah, Captain Kazi is probably talking about a more like a DSLR, a Komodo, or some other cinema level camera where you have adjustable ISO, aperture, and shutter, at which point changing the aperture is going to change your depth of field, but probably is going to be acceptable, better than changing the ISO and getting a lot of image noise. The other thing to point out, which no hobbyist is going to be doing this, but really professional cameras have the aperture, the ISO, all of those settings are controlled in real time by a separate camera operator. So the drone operator would be flying the drone, and the camera operator would be adjusting the exposure in real time, and that's how like a real pro would do it. So hopefully there are some thoughts, and hopefully they're helpful. Ricardo Ferrero wants to know why FPV gear is cheaper in the U.S. Ricardo, I am not an expert economist. I can give you some thoughts. One is that shipping things into the U.S. is cheap because it is subsidized. Shipment, for example, from China to the U.S. is subsidized because the U.S. imports a lot of things. And so shipment of products to the U.S. is cheaper. Another is that we don't have like aggressive customs duties. I've never had an international product be taxed or customs. As far as I know, we don't even like have them. Like I assume that if you're importing certain products, then there's some kind of a tariff on them maybe or something, but I've never had a customs fee for anything I've ever ordered international. And the dollar is relatively strong against other currencies, not all currencies, but other currencies. And so so when you look at something like Australia or New Zealand, right, it's a lot of work to ship stuff there, although I'm kind of surprised because they're pretty close to China. But I guess you got to just put something on a boat, get it there. Anyway, those are some reasons. Also, America's the best. We have the cheapest stuff because we're the best. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I tried. I tried to be a true patriot and bluster about how great my country is. But I just couldn't. I mean, we have our pros and cons. That doesn't have the same ring to it, though, does it? Okay, we're gonna go back to the super chats. Mr. Anderson points out that most U.S. stores list their prices without tax, whereas in Europe the tax is included. That's a good point. People outside the U.S., are you familiar with sales tax? Here's how sales tax works in the U.S. Sales tax is similar to VAT in that it is a tax that is levied on the purchase price of an object. However, there is no federal sales tax. Like VAT is, if I understand correctly, VAT is at the federal level, the state level. Sales tax is levied by each individual state. So a state will say, we're going to have a 3% sales tax, and that's how we're going to raise money for schools or whatever, a budget. But here's where it gets really effed up. So every state has different sales tax. Some states have no state sales tax. The state I'm in, Tennessee has a sales tax. Does Delaware not have? I think Delaware doesn't have a state sales tax at all. So, but it gets better. sometimes, in addition to a state sales tax, a county or city will also add a sales tax. So the county will levy like a half a cent sales tax. The city might, in some cases, levy a sales tax. So when you pick an object up off the shelf and it's $10, you have no idea how much you're actually going to be charged. The actual amount you're going to be charged will typically be between, say, 5 and 10% higher, depending on how much the sales tax is in this area. But that amount can vary from county to county and city to city. It usually is the same across the state, but not always. So, because it always varies, the stores will just put the manufacturer's price on the shelf and in their computers. And then at the end of the transaction, they're going to add the sales tax to the whole thing. And so American stores don't show that. Whereas in Europe, you see that added. That's certainly a good reason. Okay, we're going to pick up on... Oh, no. Okay. Daniel Christ has an insight about the exposure question. If you shoot in log or Cinelike, it gives you more flexibility. So you could just let the outdoor be a little bit overexposed and try and fix it in post. If you have a true cinema camera with like 14 stops of exposure shooting in 10-bit log, like you have so much dynamic range, you may actually just be able to get correct exposure. Let's get these super chats. We got a couple more super chats to get out of the way before the end of the stream. Again, we got about 20 minutes left in the stream. I'm going to answer the super chats. We currently have about 6 super chats. If I clear out the super chats before the end of the stream, I'll go back and I'll take more questions from the YouTube chat and the Discord. If you guys keep leaving super chats, I'm going to keep streaming. So, Brad Hudson, thank you for 10 Australian dollars, asks, I want to add a GPS to a 5-inch to dip into a bit of long range. Can you talk about some of the best GPS models and where to buy them? So, Brad, the number one thing you want today is an M10 GPS. The older GPSs, the last generation, if you will, they all used a chip called the M8 chip. The newest chip is the M10 chip, and it's better because it's 2 more, right? The M10 chip gets more satellites locked and faster locks, and so that's what you want today. Okay? Flywoo makes them, iFlight makes them, a bunch of manufacturers are coming out with M10 GPSs. I don't know for a fact that one is better than another, but they're all better than the M8 GPSs. However, I also want to share with you this. There's a problem with, and it's specifically a problem with M10 GPSs. The problem is that in Betaflight has the ability to talk to the GPS and tell the GPS, hey, I want you to have a really fast update rate so that I can get the fastest updates possible. And the GPS is like many GPSs ship with a 1 hertz, 1 update per second. Because they're like, what are you doing that you need 10 updates per second? But Betaflight wants as many updates as it can get. So the Betaflight will automatically set the baud rate to the fastest possible baud rate, and it'll automatically set the update rate to 10 hertz. However, currently, Betaflight doesn't work correctly with M10 GPSs. Which means that if you buy an M10 GPS, you may get bad performance and be like, wait, I thought these were supposed to be really good. That bug is being fixed right now. However, there is a post on iFlight's blog about how to fix this. I tested this today, and if you have an M10 GPS, you should do this. I'll put a link in the chat. Riat9, Betaflight also supports 10 hertz. It's not, it also supports 10 hertz. But that's how to manually set the GPS to 10 hertz and a high baud rate so it works better. Quad City Bay Area, thank you for a $5 super chat. I think I made a mistake. DJI has the better system and better testers than Walksnail. I mean, there's reasons to pick Walksnail over DJI. Chris Rosser did an interesting test. Let me try and like maybe make you feel better. Chris Rosser did a test. This was really interesting. He did a test where on the bench he had a variable resistor that caused a certain amount of loss to the signal in a controllable way. And he measured, you can watch this whole video if you want, he measured the performance of each of these systems as the resistance went up, as the loss went up. It's not a resistor, it's dB loss. And what you see here, and this is like the equivalent of additional distance. What you see here is that as the distance goes up, the avatar drops in its bit rate, but its latency is remarkably consistent. Right up until the end, and then it falls apart. Okay? Whereas with DJI, the bit rate also drops off, and the latency is always a little bit noisy. Right? The latency is not as consistent. Now, the DJI O3, this is the O3, yeah. The DJI O3 does a better job overall, because even at the maximum attenuation, it never fully drops the link and the latency keeps going. So, like, way better range and penetration overall. But look at the consistency on the Walksnail. Incredibly consistent. Yeah, Blinty.
Do we believe that log?
That's a very good question. I actually asked Chris that. And he said he believes it. He said he validated that latency number and found it to be accurate.
I would like to see points of data because I don't believe it. I really don't believe it.
I hear you. I am also skeptical, but I also have Chris is no dummy. I mean, not that you're saying he is.
And latency doesn't move for so long. Look at how long that gap is with no bitrate and no latency change at all. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, man.
I agree. It's pretty like holding the bitrate, sure, but if you're going to hold the bitrate absolutely rock steady, then shouldn't the latency be sort of adjusting because of dropped packets? What Chris said was, hang on, let me switch back to, let me pull up his conversation, but I'm going to just make sure that there's no private conversations going on at the same time. Before I put it on stream, I'll show you what he said. How do I do this? I don't know how I would do this. Can I close that window? No? All right, I'm going to just screen grab it. That's what I'm going to do. Here we go. So here's the conversation I had with Chris about this. I said, that's pretty suspicious. Any network link is going to have variable latency, especially one where packets get lost. And he says, unless you build in a buffer. If you leave space for some retransmits, you can achieve fixed latency until the signal gets really bad. And I think that's what they're doing. I said, it's interesting how stable the walk-snail bit rate is right up until they reach a threshold. Yes, it looks like rather than varying the bit rate dynamically, they have fixed modes they switch between. They seem to err on the cautious side and preserve link latency by dropping to lower bit rates sooner than DJI. Yeah. And then also...
So, okay, let me just clarify then. So what he's saying is they've somehow locked latency by sacrificing quality.
They drop to lower bit... Right. They're dropping to lower bit rates sooner. I would make a distinction between quality and bit rate, since one image can have better quality than another, even at the same bit rate. But I don't think that's what you meant. But yeah,
right.
He thinks they're dropping to a lower bit rate sooner to preserve latency.
Interesting.
Yeah, indeed. So he said, and he also says, I say, okay, hang on, I'll screen grab this. Here we go. I'll screen grab this one too. So I said, the results are super interesting. Do you really believe the walk-snail reported latency? And he said, yes, I do. The glass-to-glass is consistently a little more than reported link latency by about 2 milliseconds. And I said, I thought I remembered it being more. And he's like, nope. It's really interesting how much more consistent it is than DJI. He is just confident in those numbers, that it is consistent in a way that DJI is not.
Well, if we remember, back in the original walk-snail issues were horribly varying latency. You know, like we saw a lie in the OSD, we saw like a locked MS in the OSD, but when you looked at the logs were correct and showing a crazy high amount of variable latency. So it is interesting to see that now that's not the case. Maybe it is the case that they spent a lot of work to block that and make it not look bad in those logs, right?
But here's what I would say in response to that. And like, it's always the challenge. Like, Chris's test is a bench test where he has an attenuator, and it's perfectly repeatable and perfectly controllable, but also doesn't necessarily reflect the real world. However, the real world isn't repeatable and controllable. So, like, I kind of wonder if we would see this consistent latency in the real world the way that Chris is showing on the bench. It doesn't feel like I have seen that in the real world.
Well, for instance, we're not like simulating multiple reflection environments, right? And we're not looking at like antennas in different directions, and like there's a lot of things that can happen. You know, we also there's only one thing connected there. OFDM.
Yeah,
maybe
so
a factor,
he's
right?
blocked off the second antenna. Who knows what the O3 would do if it was able to use both antennas at once? However, like, he would need 2 attenuators for that, which I guess he could do. But so he acknowledges some of this here in this, where he says RF power measurement is hard, and he talks about his test setup. There's always going to be criticisms of this test setup, but I think it interestingly demonstrates some fundamental differences in how Walksnail and DJI approach the degradation of the link as range increases. And that result in and of itself is interesting. There's ways in which Walksnail potentially is better than DJI in terms of its ability to hold latency, and maybe that's something you care about.
Okay, one more thing I want to say is the only thing we can't tell by our analysis. Like, he can do glass to glass, but we don't know if they're relying on the bitrate. Right, so like in just a world where we would consider if the logs are correct or not, or if they're doing something to fudge results, and they knew people were checking latency numbers, they could instead fudge results for bitrate. Like, they could say, hey, it's 50 megabits, but it's actually like we're compressing it and whatever.
They could. Nope. I don't know how we would know that whether they were doing that.
Yeah, just thinking out loud.
Yeah. All right. And to be clear, I'm not not suggesting that they are doing that. Just Blunty, I think you're just fishing around for potentials.
Pontificating.
Yeah, pontificating. Okay, we got to finish these super chats. I just bought a new Walksnail VTX Pro, but it won't update to the latest firmware. I've tried everything. Thank you for a $10 super chat, Joe G. Best guess, Joe, is that you're using the wrong firmware file. No, because the Sky units all use the same firmware. That's an interesting one, Joe. I can't think of anything obvious that you might be doing wrong, Joe. What a thing that I would do if I were in your situation is go to this website, the Devil website, D3VL, and download the firmware from there. Download the Sky firmware. Maybe that'll work for you when the other one won't. I don't know. Email me if you want to go through it together. I'll try and work through it with you. To the max. Got your question there. Thank you for the $5 donation. Tim O'Connor, thank you for a $25. Wow, very generous. Finally airborne with my Cinelog 3.5 and my Boxer. Thanks for all your help. Your vids made all the difference. Keep doing what you're doing. Tim was... I think Tim is the guy who had a phone call with me today, except I don't think I remember his name being Tim O'Connor. Maybe it's someone else with a Cinelog 3.5 and a Boxer. But either way... What's that?
Real quick, too, that's the Max added this on to his super chat. He tagged me and he wanted to ask, could he use pool noodles on wood? I put it on the screen.
Wood from Restore. Yeah, you can. Yeah, sure, you can. I don't see why not. I mean, by the time you've got wood, well, wood isn't... Yeah, you can. Sure, absolutely. The problem, pool noodles are going to get... For any permanent obstacle, pool noodles are going to get chewed up and you're going to be replacing them all the time. Like, when you set up multi-GP gates to then put pool noodles on them, I mean, I guess if you don't have racers crashing into it all afternoon, I don't know, maybe they'll last longer. But if I had an obstacle like that, I probably wouldn't put pool noodles on it because I would just constantly be replacing them. And I would just crash into the wood and, hope my quad is durable. That's my opinion anyway. Matt Sanders asks, what's your opinion of the ORT Pagoda for V2 goggles? Matt, Pagodas are good quality antennas for goggles. They don't have a lot of durability when used on a quad. I think it's probably a fine antenna. ORT makes good antennas. They tend to have very good axial ratio if they're correctly made. So I think it's a fine antenna. It's not my first choice. They're a little bit bigger than like the Axie Stubby.
Are those RPSMA?
I mean, are they not made for DJI?
Oh, maybe I'm confused.
I don't know. I was assuming based on this question that it was made for DJI. Yeah, no, it's made for DJI.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you can see they're fine. They're not going to be quite as compact as like an Axie, but they're generally stubby. Pagoda antennas, if correctly made, and ORT surely is making them correctly, they're very sensitive to the spacing between the PCBs. But if they're made correctly, they're very, very good quality antennas. They're just not very durable because they're so sensitive. So I don't like to use them on quads, but on goggles, they're fine. It's $45 for a whole set. It's pretty reasonable. Georgie Tushev, thank you for a $10 super chat. My recent 5-inch build using the Source 1 V5 and 2807 motors. Oh, golly. There is no reason to use a 2807 motor on a 5-inch. I mean, I get it, Georgie. You've built it. Now you want to fly it, so more power to you. But, Lord, That's too big of a motor. It's just wasted weight. Yeah, there's no benefit there compared to like a 2507 at best. You've just got how many grams, I don't know, of additional weight to no benefit. So I would change those out for no bigger than a 25 millimeter motor. If you want something a little torquier, those are 7-inch motors, in my opinion. But anyway, that's not what you asked. I think that random hiccups on the yaw axis are most likely to be a gyro issue with the flight controller. It's possible that the motors themselves are causing it. That's just speculation. I think I would try change. I would change those motors, man. Save those motors for a 7-inch build. If you're on default PIDs, if you're not on default PIDs, go back to default PIDs and see if it fixes the hiccups. But just random hiccups on yaw are usually a gyro problem. So you have to find the source of the vibration that is disturbing your gyro. Mario White, thank you for a $25 super. Wow, that's $2.20. Thank you, Mario. That's very generous. Appreciate it. Our PD Fire Drone team is wanting a cost-effective fleet for window breaches and stuff. The team lead is thinking DJI Mini. Is it practical to suggest HC0 goggles for open source with VTX sharing and Crossfire receiver? How are you going to do a window breach with a DJI Mini? Are you going to break the window with a DJI Mini? Or do you mean like you're going to bust the window and fly the drone in? The DJI Mini is a really good quad for indoor flying. However, the problem with autonomous drones is that when the situation gets shady, they fall apart. So, for example, you fly a DJI Mini through a house. It's beautiful. Position hold, everything's wonderful. You fly a DJI Mini through a house full of smoke. How is it going to perform? I don't know. But I have seen drones in the past. For example, somebody was trying to fly a drone in a sandy environment, a dusty environment. And like the propellers kicked up all this dust. And they had all these like freaking LiDAR sensors and optical flow. And they were like, this is the best drone in the world. Anyone can fly it. It practically flies itself. Ah, look, it's perfect. And the minute it went into the building, it lost its shit. And in situations like that, the answer is a human flying an acro drone, maybe in angle mode. But a human who can interpret what they're seeing without needing additional sensors that'll get confused. So, to your question, HC0 goggles, HC0 system does not have the best penetration through obstacles. So, if you're going to fly interior to a building, like, that wouldn't be my first choice. If you want VTX sharing, the ability to broadcast to multiple people, like an O3 can do that. You could have the pilot broadcast and other people pick it up in their goggles. That's totally doable. And an O3 is going to give you dramatically better penetration. If you're thinking about using the DJI Mini with the HC0 goggles, that won't work. That won't work.
It does work with the DJI goggles now, though.
The DJI Mini with the DJI goggles. That you're right about that. Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Also, I'm sorry, one more thing I wanted to say is if you're using those DJI Minis and you're having issues, as far as I know, there's only sensors on the bottom, as someone in chat has pointed out. And when I had a DJI Mini, I was able to tape over the two bottom sensors, and once you're taking off like that, it ignores them. So it might be worth considering looking at those options.
Interesting. Matt's text said the sharing mode of Walksnail has better range by far. Yeah, but the actual pilot link has shorter range. So what really matters? I don't know what really matters. Okay. We are caught up on Super Chats. We are 1 minute from the end of the stream. Unless any last minute Super Chats come in, that is going to do us. Ciati is going to be streaming. Is Ciati streaming tonight? Is he here? He was here. Let's see. Is he streaming? I don't see a link to his stream. Well, if he is streaming, I hope he posts. There it is! Ciati's going to be streaming tonight, starting at 10 o'clock. Right about now. So head on over to his stream. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring. And did I do the Alexi chat? Oh, I didn't. Oh, crap. Thank you, Plenty. Alexi. Wow, great. Wait. Oh, that's not a super chat. I see. Okay, we got one more super chat. Sorry, Ciati. Why, when I have 3D flying mode enabled on the Motors tab, does GPS Rescue disappear on the Modes tab? Alexi, you cannot use 3D and GPS Rescue at the same time because GPS Rescue doesn't want to kick in if the quad might be upside down. Basically, Betaflight won't let you use GPS Rescue and 3D at the same time. They're just mutually exclusive. I don't have a really better answer other than that Betaflight won't let you. Okay, Blenty, are we caught up?
As far as I can tell, we have hit every super chat.
Okay, awesome. You guys have a good night. Ciati, have a great stream, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.